On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong supposedly stepped onto the moon, calling it a giant leap for mankind. But what if it never happened? For decades, a compelling theory has persisted. The moon landing was a hoax, a carefully staged production by NASA to outmaneuver the Soviets in the Cold War space race. Welcome to the Stuffology Show, where we dive into history's most intriguing stories, unpacking the what, why, and how. Today, we're exploring the moon landing conspiracy, its murky origins, its stubborn growth, and why it feels so believable to so many. Buckle up for a wild ride through the cosmos. The 1960s were a tense time. The US and Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War, a high-stakes game where every victory was a flex. Space was the ultimate arena. The Soviets had already humiliated America with Sputnik in 1957 and Yuri Gagarin's orbit in 1961. The U.S. was desperate to catch up. In 1962, President Kennedy made a bold promise: land a man on the moon before the decade's end. The Apollo program was born, fueled by billions of dollars, thousands of scientists, and a nation's pride on the line. But the pressure was immense. Failure wasn't an option, and some say that pressure led to cutting corners, maybe even faking the whole thing. By 1969, Apollo 11 was the big moment. Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins allegedly blasted off, landed on the moon, and returned as heroes. The world watched grainy footage of astronauts bouncing in low gravity, planting the flag, and collecting rocks. Over 600 million people were glued to their TVs. It looked like a triumph. But right away, sharp-eyed skeptics noticed oddities. The flags seemed to wave, impossible without wind. The photos showed no stars. Shadows fell in strange ways. These weren't just nitpicks. They were red flags that made people wonder if NASA was pulling a fast one. Distrust was everywhere in the late 60s. Vietnam was a disaster. Watergate was looming, and faith in institutions was crumbling. If the government could lie about war, why not the moon? The conspiracy's spark came in 1974 with Bill Kaysing's book, We Never Went to the Moon. A former Navy officer and technical writer, Kaysing wasn't a scientist, but he had a knack for asking questions that hit hard. He claimed NASA didn't have the tech to pull it off, so they staged a landing in a studio, possibly Area 51. His book wasn't academic, but it was convincing, laying out a case that felt airtight to everyday folks. Kaysing's arguments were visual and gripping. The flag was his biggest gotcha. In the footage, it looks like it's flapping, but the moon has no atmosphere, no wind. To him, that screamed a soundstage with a fan blowing. Then the photos. The sky's black, but where are the stars? Shouldn't cameras have captured them? And the shadows. Those were the real kicker. In some shots, shadows fall at odd angles like multiple light sources were used. On Earth, that's a studio setup. On the moon, it's hard to explain. These points weren't just theories. They were things anyone could see and question. The beauty of Kaysing's case was its simplicity. You didn't need to be a rocket scientist to look at a photo and think, that's off. His book sold modestly at first, but it struck a chord. By the late 70s, the idea was spreading through underground newsletters, radio shows, and barn debates. It fed into a growing feeling. The government was hiding something big. If NASA could fake humanity's greatest achievement, what else were they covering up? The stakes felt enormous, and the theory gave people a way to push back against a system that seemed untrustworthy. NASA's defenders argue the moon landing was real, pointing to the Apollo program scale. It involved 400,000 people, multiple countries, and physical evidence like lunar rocks. The Soviets, who were watching closely, never disputed it. Those rocks, scientists say they're chemically unique with no Earth-like weathering. But skeptics counter that NASA had the resources to fake rocks. After all, they had billions to play with. And the Soviets staying quiet? Maybe they weren't on it, or too embarrassed to admit they'd been outdone. It's not hard to imagine a deal behind closed doors. The flag issue keeps coming up because it's so visual. NASA says it's not waving, it's crinkled. In a vacuum, with no air to dampen motion, the fabric stayed bunched when planted. When astronauts twisted the pole, it rippled and stayed that way. Sounds reasonable, but when you watch the footage, it still looks like a breeze is hitting it. The stars? NASA claims cameras were set for daylight exposure to capture the bright lunar surface, not faint stars. Fair enough, but why not take a single starry photo for proof? And the shadows? The moon's reflective surface scatters light, creating weird patterns. Science-y, sure, but those shadows still look like they're from a Hollywood set. The 70s and 80s saw the theory gain traction. Skeptics started digging into the Van Allen radiation belts, zones of charged particles around Earth. Could astronauts survive passing through them? NASA says yes, with shielding and a quick trip through weaker areas. But the belts are brutal, radiation levels that could fry a human. Kaysing argued the tech wasn't there yet, and some engineers privately admitted the risks were high. No one's been back to the moon since 1972, which only fuels the doubt. If it was so doable, why abandon it for decades? The internet in the 90s was a turning point. Suddenly, anyone with a modem could share moon hoax theories. Early forums, websites, and later YouTube became hotbeds for dissecting NASA's footage. Videos zoomed in on photos, pointing out mistakes like mismatched shadows or objects that looked out of place. In 2001, a Fox documentary, Conspiracy Theory, Did We Land on the Moon?, brought the idea to millions. It replayed Kaysing's points but added a wild twist. Stanley Kubrick, fresh off 2001, A Space Odyssey, might have directed the fake footage. The theory leaned on Kubrick's knack for realistic space visuals. His film looked eerily like NASA's photos. Some even pointed to his later movie, The Shining, claiming he had clues about his involvement. It's far-fetched, but the idea of a Hollywood genius staging the moon landing is too good to ignore. What makes the conspiracy so durable is how it handles pushback. NASA releases more photos. Skeptics say they're doctored. Scientists debunk claims. They're part of the cover-up. This isn't just stubbornness, it's a mindset. The moon landing was so monumental, so hard to comprehend, that faking it feels more plausible to some than achieving it. Why trust a government that's been caught lying before? The theory thrives on doubt, and the more NASA explains, the deeper the suspicion grows. The psychology here is key. People crave order in a chaotic world. A moon landing hoax offers a tidy story. Powerful elites tricked us, and the truth is being hidden. It's empowering to question the official narrative, especially when the evidence, like those wavy flags or starless skies, feels so in your face. Add in the fact that the US was desperate to beat the Soviets, and faking it starts to seem like a practical move. Why risk failure when you can stage a win? The theory's spread wasn't just about logic. It was emotional. In the 80s, talk shows and tabloids amplified the idea, framing it as a David versus Goliath battle between regular folks and NASA's machine. By the 90s, conspiracy culture was booming, with books and zines keeping the flame alive. The internet made it explode, connecting skeptics worldwide. Today, X and TikTok are full of posts zooming in on Apollo footage, claiming to spot wires or stagehands. Some even say AI-generated images prove the hoax, though ironically, those could be fake too. The conspiracy's staying power is remarkable. Polls show 5 to 10% of Americans, millions of people, still believe the moon landing was fake. That number's higher in other countries, especially where distrust in the US runs deep. It's not just about the moon anymore. This theory laid the groundwork for other conspiracies, 9/11, flat Earth, even vaccine skepticism. It's a mindset. If they can fake something this big, nothing's off limits. The moon hoax was a pioneer, showing how a compelling story can outlast evidence. Let's not ignore the other side, though. The moon landing's defenders have plenty to work with. Over 400,000 people worked on Apollo, from engineers to janitors. Could they all keep quiet? The Soviets' bitter rivals never disputed it. Lunar rocks have been studied for decades, showing chemical signatures no Earth rock matches. Independent observatories tracked Apollo's path, and reflectors left on the moon still bounce laser signals back to Earth. It's a mountain of evidence. But skeptics argue mountains can be built. NASA had the budget, the motive, and the means to orchestrate a cover-up. The flag, shadows, and stars keep coming up because they're so visual. Every explanation, crinkled fabric, camera settings, reflective surfaces, sounds plausible, but it doesn't erase the gut feeling that something's wrong. Then there's the radiation. The Van Allen belts are no joke. NASA's shielding was supposedly enough, but some scientists still debate whether humans could pass through safely. No moon mission since 1972 only adds to the skepticism. If it was real, why not go back? Budget cuts, sure, but that's a weak excuse for a nation that loves to show off. The Kubrick angle is where it gets really fun. His 1968 film 2001 had space scenes so realistic they rivaled NASA's footage. Conspiracy fans point to details like the lighting in Apollo photos, claiming it matches Kubrick's style. Some even say he left hints in The Shining, like a kid wearing an Apollo 11 sweater. It's a stretch, but it's the kind of story that sticks. Imagine the U.S. hiring a movie genius to fake the greatest achievement in history. It's almost too perfect. The conspiracy's growth wasn't just about photos or radiation. It was cultural. The 70s and 80s were a golden age for questioning authority. Anti-establishment vibes were everywhere. Punk rock, protest movements, and a growing sense that the system wasn't honest. The moon hoax fit right in, giving people a way to stick it to the man. By the 90s, it was part of a broader conspiracy culture alongside UFOs and secret societies. The internet supercharged it, letting skeptics swap theories instantly. Social media today keeps the fire burning. X posts and TikTok videos dissect every frame of Apollo footage, pointing out glitches like shadows that don't align or objects that look staged. Some claim modern AI can recreate the moon landing footage, proving it could have been fake back then. Of course, AI can fake anything now, which cuts both ways. But the point is, the theory thrives because it's relatable. You don't need a degree to see a wavy flag and wonder. The moon landing's official story has its strengths, no doubt. The Apollo program was a massive undertaking, with too many moving parts to fake easily. The rocks, the reflectors, the tracking data, it's a lot to dismiss. But the hoax theory doesn't need to disprove every detail. It just needs to plant out. And it does that brilliantly. Those photos, that flag, the eerie perfection of it all, it's enough to make you pause. Add in a government with a track record of secrecy, and the idea that they staged it starts to feel less crazy. The legacy of this theory is its grip on the imagination. It's not just about whether we went to the moon. It's about trust, power, and what we're willing to believe. The moon landing pushed technology forward, computers, GPS, even silly stuff like powder drinks. NASA's Artemis program plans to go back by 2026, which might settle the debate. But the conspiracy keeps the landing alive in a weird way. It forces us to question evidence, authority, and what's possible. Why does this theory endure? It's storytelling at its finest. A hoax narrative has everything: heroes, villains, hidden truths. It's more gripping than the official story of engineers and math. People love a twist, especially when it means the little guy outsmarts the system. The moon landing happened. Sure, there's evidence. But the conspiracy feels truer to some because it fits a world where power lies and trust is scarce. Those photos, with their odd shadows and missing stars, are like a puzzle begging to be solved. The theory's cultural impact is huge. It paved the way for modern conspiracies, from QAnon to anti-vax movements. It showed how a single idea, NASA faked it, can spiral into a worldview. Today, 5 to 10% of Americans still buy into it, and globally, the numbers are higher. Every new space mission gets scrutinized, with ex-users quick to point out proof of fakery. The Artemis program might change minds, but don't bet on it. Doubt is sticky. The moon landing's defenders have their work cut out. They've got rocks, data, and thousands of witnesses. But the hoax theory doesn't need to win every argument. It just needs to keep people wondering. And it does. The flag, the shadows, the radiation, the fact we haven't gone back. It all adds up to a story that's hard to shake. Maybe NASA did it. Maybe they didn't. But when you look at those photos and feel that twinge of doubt, you get why this theory won't die. That's our story for today. The moon landing hoax is a deep dive into history, science, and the human need to question. It's a tale that makes you wonder what's real and what's not. Thanks for joining the Stuffology Show. Keep doubting, keep exploring, and maybe take a look at the moon tonight. It's up there, keeping its secrets,